Hello and welcome back to Business Matters at the Hindu with me, K. Bharat Kumar. In a recent report, a government-appointed panel has recommended that all four-wheelers that were powered by diesel engines should be banned by 2027 in towns and cities with a population greater than 10 lakh. What factors could have motivated such a recommendation? Let's take a look. The focus of our country and perhaps every other nation in the globe is to go green, that is, to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and hence slow climate change. So in that context, the panel has aligned itself to this cause. A Businessline article that reported on these recommendations last month also cited a September 2022 report by the Automobile Research Association of India that said that the transport sector contributed 20% of PM 2.5 emissions. PM 2.5 refers to particulate matter emissions. All in all, it makes sense to move away from fossil fuels for the sake of mobility. Here are a few other things that the panel has recommended. By 2030, no city buses should be added which are not electric. CNG or compressed natural gas powered vehicles may continue till 2035, but diesel buses for city transport should not be added from 2024 onwards. Long-distance buses will have to be a mixture of electric with battery swapping and CNG/LNG. Long-term focus on transitioning to EVs with CNG as transition fuel after 10 to 15 years. Vehicles with flex fuel capabilities and hybrids may be promoted in the short term and medium term. This can be done through the application of fiscal tools like taxation. No diesel city buses addition to be allowed in urban areas to drive towards transition towards clean fuel public transport in about 10 years. It also stressed that extending the FAME 2 scheme beyond March 2024 would be beneficial for the sector. Market observers welcomed these recommendations but also felt that they were quite ambitious given the timelines. Here's what Vibhuti Garg of the Institute for Energy Economics and Financial Analysis had to say.
This ban looks ambitious. While it's definitely something which is required, there's definitely the right intent to get away with diesel vehicles. And I think from time to time, government has been giving that kind of an indication. In the Basel 6, the requirements were more stringent for the diesel vehicle. And as a result, we did see a lot of mobile companies, stop manufacturing diesel vehicles. So Maruti has done away with any production of diesel vehicles. In other countries also, there is a lot of stringent requirement, but those same companies are manufacturing and selling the diesel cars in India. So I think unless there is such a strong policy push, there will be manufacturing happening, there will be consumers who will be buying such vehicles. So while the intent is right, I think it has to be done in a phased manner. It has to be done to start with more of passenger vehicles and then the commercial vehicle. And I think that's how even the government is looking at it. So I support the move, but at the same time, as I said, unless there is an analysis in the terms of who are going to be impacted, and if especially for people who have just purchased, I mean, there is a shelf life for these vehicles. So there has to be a way of to an extent compensating, some kind of a fair compensation being done to do away with the existing fleet if you really have to put the ban by 2027. Though what I've been hearing is that this could be extended. Why, if there is an extension, but it still sends a strong signal, is what I am gonna reiterate that that the Indian government is serious and it can come up with such a strong ban. So people need to get their house in order by stop manufacturing more diesel vehicles and for individual consumers to stop buying more polluting diesel vehicles and look at other cleaner options.
Executives in the auto industry too have welcomed these recommendations, but some feel that as a country we have to move cautiously towards these goals. Manish Raj Singhania, president of FADA, or Federation of Automobile Dealers Associations, said that people mobility is key to India's economic growth, but India's transport systems in the public sector still have a long way to go even in urban areas. Here's his take on the recommendations.
Our auto industry has matured, is compiling or is in a level playing field compared to any auto industry of the developed nations across the world. We are complying to international standards and norms in terms of pollution, whether it is diesel or petrol. And we have taken strong steps to comply to that. We need to understand that automobile is a mobility, it's a necessity in India, not a luxury. You cannot say that automobile is a luxury here in India. From point A to point B, we need to have an automobile. We don't have very robust public transport system. Even in metro cities, we are still struggling to, have a very end-to-end public transport system, and we continue to. We are definitely adapting very fast, but down the line, if you go to B grade or C grade towns, there is hardly any, any consumer or customer commuter cannot leverage public transport system for travel convenience. I don't know why diesel vehicles are always made a kind of villain. Though we are complying to all international norms, and diesel has its own advantages, which no petrol or no other alternate fuel can address to. Just and on top of that, if you look at it, we have also we are also adapting to new technologies also very fast, whether it is CNG, LPG, electric, or even say talk of hydrogen. Mr. Gadkari himself is driving a hydrogen car. So we are open. Our market is open. We are vibrant here. We are concerned about the environment, and we need to, address the environmental issue that is definitely there. But at what cost? If you make automobile unaffordable for the common man, we are already in that in GST, we are already in that sin tax bracket, and on top of that, we have to pay a lot of cess also. So just making automobile kind of unaffordable for a common man will not, bring out a solution. We need to, invest more in public transport, public infra, so that consumer selflessly opts for, out of his or her choice.
Here's an interesting market factoid. Consumers themselves seem to be moving away from diesel-powered vehicles. Fada Singhania points out that diesel-powered vehicles used to account for 48% of total sales 10 years ago, and that percentage is now down to 18%. In a recent report, Moody's pointed out that policy will be key to the development of the electric vehicle infrastructure, and that currently EVs accounted only for 1% of car sales. Hydrogen-powered vehicles are still a far-off scenario even in Western countries because of a couple of stumbling blocks. One, the hydrogen produced has to be green, that is, it should not cause any more greenhouse gas emissions. And secondly, we have to get hydrogen to retail distribution points, like we have petrol bunks in our vicinity and neighborhoods. That's some time away. Before we move on, here's a hypothetical question that struck us because of lack of policy support, say for example, for EVs or gas-powered vehicles. What if consumers move completely away from diesel towards petrol-powered engines? That drove us to go and study a little bit about how petrol engines work and compare those with how diesel works. Some of you may be surprised to know that internal combustion engines that run on diesel are actually slightly more efficient than those that run on petrol. Diesel may contain more carbon dioxide than petrol, but given per kilometer of travel, diesel engines emit lesser carbon dioxide than petrol engines. But carbon dioxide emissions alone are not the problem. Particulate matter emissions are seen in diesel engines. Nitrogen oxides are also emitted. Catalytic converters in petrol engines help reduce such emissions by 30%. Meanwhile, modern diesel engines use filters to prevent such oxides from reaching the atmosphere. In all, burning fossil fuels will anyway give us problems, either lung problems with diesel or GHG emissions with petrol. So much for hypothesis, but in reality, how difficult is it for a country like India to move away from diesel-powered vehicles? For context, you may know, for the fiscal year ended March 2023, India consumed 35 million metric tons of petrol, but whereas it consumed 86 million metric tons of diesel. Out of the total petrol products consumption, that makes up 16% for petrol, and 39% for diesel. So which means if India has to move away completely from diesel, it's like a large ship turning around and making a U-turn. It's going to take some time. Before we wind down this episode, here's another pertinent question. Even assuming the whole country moves to electric vehicles, what if renewable sources of energy do not keep pace? What if we burn a lot of coal in order to produce power and the emissions from burning such coal offset the benefits of running EVs on our roads? Dr. Charles Worringham, a consultant to AIFA and to whom we spoke for a Business Matters episode on 2G ethanol last year, says that even today, running an electric vehicle is far more carbon efficient than running an internal combustion engine based vehicle. That is, we have to put together everything, how we generate power and how much emission an automobile on the road generates. How much more carbon efficient we are with an EV depends on the time of day when we charge the electric vehicle. Solar generation by the country is at its highest during the daytime, and nighttime generation would relatively depend more on coal-fired power. Based on our request, Dr. Worringham made a few calculations to show how we are better off with EVs. For this, he took into consideration India's 2030 ambitions for power generation and installed capacity from renewables, electric vehicles' longevity compared with ICE engines, the IEA's estimates for India's grid's electricity supply, a standard formula that is used to calculate emissions per kilometer from EVs, and the average EV rating, that is power usage per kilometer. He says that we could expect emissions from EVs in the range of 16% to 71% of the emissions per kilometer of an ICE vehicle by 2040. But that's quite some time into the future. But even now, if you look at data for the week ended May 27th this year, he says an average EV today would count for emissions of 71% as a best case scenario, 71% of emissions per kilometer of an ICE vehicle, even based on today's coal-heavy electricity supply. In other words, EVs are at least comparable to and sometimes even cleaner than ICE engines even today, and they will only get cleaner depending on the pace at which clean energy makes up a greater proportion of electricity generation. That's all we have for now, folks. If you like this episode and you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you like and share this with your friends, and do not forget to subscribe to our channel. Till we meet again, have a lovely time ahead.